I tested out 7 quick-dry top coats that you can find at the drugstore. To me, a great top coat should have 2 important qualities. 1, it should dry quickly. I want to be able to paint my nails and move on. And 2, it should prolong my manicure as long as possible. Each time I tested a top coat, I made sure to get rid of all oils from my nails with acetone. And I made sure to use the same base coat and 2 coats of the exact same pink polish. And yes, I got very, very sick of the color. So if you appreciate the sacrifice I made for this video, feel free to leave a like or even subscribe. Also, before I begin, I want to note that this is just my personal experience testing each polish. If you have a different experience with a top coat, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I know everyone has different nails and can have different results with the same polish. Now on to the experiment. First up, let's talk about my favorite top coat, Seche Vite. It's $8.48 at my local grocery store. What I love about this top coat is how glossy it is and how quickly it dries. It didn't start chipping until day 3 with a small chip on the thumb. On day 5, there was cracking on the side of the index finger. On day 6, there was a little more chipping on the thumb. On day 8, there was maybe a little more chipping on the thumb and side of the ring fingernail. On day 9, the thumb and ring fingernails were the only ones with chipping. They weren't terrible chips on those fingers, and the rest of the fingers were fine. Next up, I tried out LA Girl. It's $2.99 at my local grocery store, and it's the cheapest of all the ones I tried. When I used this top coat, it did have a watery consistency. I noticed my pinky had a bumpy texture, but this was probably because I had an uneven texture on it, so it's maybe my fault. Although it mostly dried after a couple hours, it wasn't completely dry and still dented even the next day. There was also a slight chip on the thumb only after 1 day of wear. By day 2, there was a small chip on the pinky and ring finger. On day 3, the thumb became annoying and I had to fix it. And on day 5, the ring finger chipped and looked a bit broken. The pinky was also chipped. At that point, I decided to end this manicure. Next, I tried Nail Aid. It's also an affordable polish, costing $3.88 at my local store. Although it didn't dry in the advertised 50 seconds, it did dry okay. It had a thin, watery coat. The packaging makes it seem like it would make a manicure last 16 days. I was very curious to see if this would happen to me. Unfortunately, there were very tiny chips on the edge of the pointer and ring fingernails by day 1. It may not be easy to see on camera, but I could feel it in real life. Honestly, after that, I was pretty impressed. There wasn't any more chipping until day 6. One of the chips shouldn't count because my thumbnail had broken and had to be trimmed. There was also a slight chip on my pinky and the pointer was worn. On day 7, my ring fingernail bent, causing paint to come off, and I had some issues with the nail. I'd say this is a good competitor with the Seche Vite so far. But it didn't last the 16 days the packaging claims. Next up, I tried the Revlon top coat. It's $13.08 on Amazon right now, so it's super expensive for a drugstore nail polish in my opinion. If you watched my base coat video, you'll know that Revlon won the contest for prolonging manicures. I was very curious to see if it would do the same for top coats. Although it seemed to dry fast, I did notice some texture on my thumb by day 2. My other fingers are better, but I was very careful and it still happened. I like low-maintenance top coats, so this was already a disappointment. On day 4, the ring finger had slight wear on the edge. On day 8, I had a lot of texture on my nails for a few days. I was guessing because the top coat wore off. My thumb started chipping on day 10, but the rest of my nails were fine besides the texture. On day 11, the thumb chipped and was catching on things, so I fixed it. And on day 17, the manicure was very textured. Otherwise, there hadn't been any chipping besides the thumb. I tested OPI next. It's $11.99 at my local store. It dried pretty quickly for me, but after 1 day, it had chips on my thumb and my ring finger. This may have been from user error, though. Also, it was slightly dented. On day 3, my middle finger had a very small chip. My pointer showed slight texture, but overall the finish was good in the rest of the nails. On day 5, my thumb and pinky were chipped pretty bad. I needed to fix them. My pinky strangely split down the middle, which is not typical for me. On day 10, my middle finger was badly chipped. Index finger was slightly chipped, and there was some denting on my index finger for a couple of days. Next, I tested the Essie Speed Setter top coat. It's $10.99 on Amazon right now. I noticed right away that it was fast drying. On day 2, my thumb cracked a bit, but that's expected because my thumbnail has been giving me problems throughout all of the tests. On day 6, there was a bad chip in my middle finger and I needed to repair it. At day 9, my thumb chipped badly again. I needed to cut it because the nail was in bad shape. My pinky was slightly chipped on the side. You can tell the middle finger had a bad top coat application, but this was the second application due to needing to fix the chip. After Essie, I tried Sally Hansen Insta-Dry. It's currently on sale for $4.47 on Amazon. I should note that prior to painting my nails for this test, I noticed that my thumbnail was in bad condition and I needed to file my middle nail. I originally thought it dried quickly, but noticed when I woke up the next day that there was texture on the thumb and pinky. I also will mention that I went to bed not too long after painting my nails, so that probably didn't help. On day 2, my thumb cracked, but I knew my thumb was already bad. There was a small chip on my index finger and a crack and chip on my ring finger. On day 3, there was a tiny crack on my pinky and my ring finger was worse. On day 6, there was some chipping on my middle finger. And the next day, there may have been a bit more chipping. I also added Seche Vite to my thumb because it was cracked. At day 10, my index and ring fingers were chipped the most, excluding the thumb. Also, the bottom of the ring finger near the cuticle chipped. There was so much denting visible. Now it's time for me to give my overall opinion on the polishes. I did make a little chart to help me visualize how each polish did in the testing. Feel free to pause if you'd like to compare the polishes. Based on the results I have from these tests, I'd say unfortunately Sally Hansen and LA Girl did the worst. However, it's very possible the store sold me old polish, or maybe they don't work as well on my nails. So please let me know if you get better results with either of the polishes. I'd say Essie probably got second place if you ignore my thumbnail. Besides a slight chip on the pinky and the chip on the thumb on day 2, no other nails chipped until day 6, and it dries so quickly. I debated giving Revlon second place, but the texture on the second day was annoying. I feel like it didn't dry as fast as a quick dry top coat should, so that disqualifies it from getting second place for me. I'd have to say Seche Vite earns first place in this quick dry top coat experiment. It dries really quickly and there weren't any chips until day 3, and that was just the thumb, which always chipped quickly. No other polish went without chips that long, unless you count Revlon, which had texture early on. For Seche Vite, no other finger besides the thumb chipped until day 5. I do think Nail Aid should get an honorable mention. If you ignore the tiny chips on the first day, it did well until day 6. With that being said, I think from now on, after doing this experiment, I'll be using Seche Vite's and Essie's top coats. If you have any other top coats you'd like to recommend, feel free to write it in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video, and that's what Kay says.